Hey everyone, we're gonna get started. If everyone can grab a seat, that would be great. All right, welcome to the monthly OPA meetings for February. Glad to see a lot of familiar faces, ladies. Glad to see a lot of familiar faces, and really glad to see a bunch of new faces. My name's Sean, I'm the president. Sometimes we like to have a round of introductions, but I'm not sure we have time. So if we do that, we'll do that after various guest speakers, just so people can get to know some of the new people. Tonight, we're switching the agenda up slightly. I know we usually start with sort of Santa Monica Police talking about sort of things over the last month. But due to scheduling, we're going to be starting with our first guest, who is a newly elected council member, Ellis Raskin, who's here to say hello and talk about his priorities and goals for the city. Come on up.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you everyone so much for having me here. Can the folks online hear me all right? Yep, perfect. Well, thank you everyone for having me again. My name is Ellis Raskin. I'm one of the newly elected city council members. I just started up in December, so it's now been about just a few months. A lot happening in the area and the city, as you folks know. But it's an exciting time. I think our city has a lot of opportunities, obviously a lot of challenges. One of my key goals is obviously making sure that we get our city back on track in terms of finances, back on track in terms of mobility, making sure everybody feels safe and they can go out and enjoy the city where we live. Obviously, there's a lot going on around us in the broader LA area. The fires, I think, have impacted every single person in this community. I think everyone knows somebody who has been affected by this, and it's affecting our city. It's affecting who's coming in and spending money here. It's affecting housing prices. We've seen the cost of rents skyrocket. We've seen the costs of goods and businesses skyrocket. We've seen people who have had contractors who've been doing things like repairing a water heater say, hey, I'm sorry, I just got outbid 4 times the price working for somebody in the Palisades. So this has had a tremendous impact on our community. Obviously, our hearts go out to those who have lost their lives, lost their homes in the LA area, and we have a responsibility as a broader community to help uplift those people who have been affected by this. Speaking locally, we've got a lot going on in terms of our city council. We've got a big meeting tomorrow night. We're talking about the safety element of our general plan. We're talking about some equity issues, about how we can make right some of the past injustice that has happened in our community in terms of some racist practices in the past. In our last meeting, we talked about the future of the airport, obviously something that is of great interest to a lot of people. I'll tell you, I got about 1,500 emails in about a 48-hour period. Which, yeah, a lot. People have some strong.
Not from me.
No, I don't think I got one from you. No. I'm happy to talk, happy to answer any questions. One of the things I said when I first got elected is, Santa Monica is a city that's small enough where you get to know people on the street, you know your neighbors. If any of you folks want to chat, reach out to me. You can find me at ellis.raskin@santamonica.gov. Let's grab coffee, let's grab a beer, let's talk about the issues that are important to you. I'll be here for you. I saw some hands go up. So you've got your yeah, go for it.
Last week, Noma had a meeting, and I brought in my comments. Lana Negrete was at the meeting, chief of the police and chief of the fire department. It was an amazing meeting, well attended, 100 people were in the Zoom. Small business, hurting a lot. Santa Monica Chamber of Commerce, missing in action, no plan, nothing. I myself have been doing pro bono since the 9th of January to the 9th of February. That was yesterday. I did a lot of around promotion for small businesses, but small businesses are the ones that are really hurting the most. And I'm just a little bit concerned that after COVID, there were no strategies in place for another emergency like this. that if something happens, companies already have binders. Okay, if this happens, that we deploy. And my concern is, as friends of mine are closing businesses, and I have a non-for-profit, and I have also a for-profit LLC, that yes, we are grateful for the SBA loans, but in that, I don't have a brick and mortar, thank God. But those brick and mortars, are the ones that are saying, I'm gonna close because this cannot continue. So this is something that I want to bring to you, and I want you to discuss it with them. So we cannot afford this a third time, because the mom and pops and the small businesses are the ones that are just hurting the most. And we want to continue having a small business economy here. So,
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, we're well aware of it. I think it's no secret to everyone in the room that we're seeing some beloved restaurants in our community close up shop. Like the cost of doing business here has never been more challenging. And we've got to right size this. The cost of permitting and permitting slowdowns has really put a hamper on folks. One of the things I was talking about when I was on the campaign trail is how a buddy of mine owns a restaurant on Pico, and he'd been waiting. In November, it was about 7 months. He was still waiting for an electrical permit. It's now February, still waiting for sign off on that electrical permit. There are some things we've really got to get right here. There are some proposals that are being circulated as to how we could potentially streamline things. Our city just hired a new director of community and economic development. So I'm hopeful that we'll get on the right track, but obviously with the fire situation and the general economic downturn post-COVID, there are some real challenges that our community is facing. I mean, it's not just mom and pop places, but the real bedrocks of our economic engine here locally have been struggling. I just saw that Johnny Rockets might be closing down on the Promenade. That's been here for, I think, like 30, 40 years now, right? I mean, it's just shocking what we're losing in this community. We've got to reverse course right
And
now.
the earth, wind and flower too.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's really, I think, gut wrenching for our community to see these institutions close down. I mean, retail is evolving. The way in which people are leasing out spaces is evolving, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't be doing everything we can locally to support businesses. And there's a lot more we should be doing for sure.
Any other questions? By the way, Jerry, on Jerry's comment about Earth, Wind and Flower, at least with that restaurant, it closed because the owner passed away. So Earth, Wind and Flower. That was what was reported. Okay.
it's being sold.
Sorry, I lied. Heard false information.
So with like, for example, your friends is waiting on the electrical permit, like why does that take a year? Like, what are the proposals to help fix that? Because from what I've seen, like, I don't know why it's not as simple as somebody comes, checks it out, somebody signs the paper. I don't know why does that take a year and what can we do about it?
I think there are a few different layers to this. I mean, one is the systems that are in place within Plan Check. If you go to the city of LA, usually you can just bring your plans to the counter, get checked within a matter of 48 hours. My day job, I work as a land use attorney, so I work with folks all the time who've got to get their plans stamped and things checked. There are some systematic processes here that I think need to be revised. I think a hiccup that often happens, and I'm not sure if this happened with my friend's case on Pico, but oftentimes when there are revisions that have to be made, that's where it goes through a whole another month-long process of revisions. It could take a long time. Last year, the city brought in some new software that was supposed to expedite this. I don't know how that's working. I mean, from this anecdotal example, hasn't sped that one up very much. There's a proposal that's being floated by some of my colleagues to allow for certain self-certifications for certain types of permitting. I can't really give you a coherent explanation of how that's going to work out entirely, but I'm excited to learn more about it. But it's also just a matter too of making sure that we've got people in place who know what they're doing. We've got a well-staffed building department who's ready to sign off on these things. So it's complicated. That's a long-winded explanation for what's going on. I'd be happy to talk more about it. It's been a
John, you had your hand up?
What's an action item? For who?
Well, it's one, changing processes. It's making sure that when plans go in, that there are deadlines that make sure that they get stamped and turned out within, say, 48 hours. Within the city of LA, that's the expectation, and there's not a strict deadline. But if we can give people certainty and we can give people strict deadlines within our own systems and processes, I think that's a solution.
John, you had your hand up?
Yeah.
I know we're communities that have aspirations, and those aspirations are costing money.
Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about the financial situation we're in and how important it is to raise revenue, which is, could you take a minute? And share that with people?
Yeah, I'm glad you're asking about this. So in March, we're coming up on our budget review for the upcoming budget cycle. Usually our city does budgets within a 2-year cycle. Historically, Santa Monica has been very lucky to have a lot of resources in our city. We've had city that goes. Yeah, as a lot of you folks know, we've been facing a lot. Facing a lot of money out in terms of liability from settlements, and our economy isn't returning at the pace in which we expected, coming back to pre-COVID levels. So what we're going to see is that we're faced with some tough financial headwinds. And to contextualize this a little bit further, we are about to go into labor negotiations with all of our city's bargaining units. So all the city employees are up for new contracts in terms of their bargaining units. If you want to get into specific figures, I mean, we're potentially facing a significant economic deficit in the years ahead. How we can close that depends a lot on one, whether or not people come back and spend money in our city, and 2, whether we can settle some of those outstanding cases that are potentially sources of liability moving forward. So it's a tough time. I mean, I think folks need to anticipate that we're going to have to make some tough choices in terms of how we're budgeting moving forward. I think we need to do everything we can to work with our community partners to make sure that we're supporting our local businesses. We're supporting folks who are driving the economic engine of our city.
They use the word dire.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough. We're going to have to make some tough choices.
As of now, and I realize it's early, as of now, what do you think the council sees as primary engines to stimulate economic growth for the city?
Well, historically, tourism has been key. Getting those transient occupancy tax dollars into our city has been a crucial component of our economy. With the fires happening, people are canceling trips. With COVID, that completely wiped out our tourist economy for a long time. But we have some opportunities coming up. Between the World Cup and the Olympics, we have some big events that hopefully will drive people back into our city. It's a matter of image too. It's a matter of making sure that people see our city as the place that is a city that is the place to go in LA. I was just talking with actually the folks at the Olympic Committee, not the Olympic Committee, LA 28, the folks who organized the Olympics here. And the consensus is that when people come to LA, the things that they visit are Hollywood sign, Disneyland, Santa Monica Pier, and maybe a few other things. It's a unique spot in the hearts of the world when people come to this area. We need to make sure that people are checking off this part of their checklist when they come visit LA.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
I think the two, I guess I want to ask you if you think these are the two biggest issues facing Santa Monica in the future. Is number one, I guess it's the city of LA or the county is going to, they plan on imposing pay to drive scheme in the West LA area, Bundy, over, square, it'll include Santa Monica, pay to drive to get into an area. If you have any what do you think about that? Or if you have any, better idea about getting rid of traffic congestion? And the other thing is the past, state bill of, SB 9 and 10, which is, basically going to drastically change the character of Santa Monica single residential to multi-units, and what spills out, again, it's cars and people's, lots more people in the city stepping on each other's heels. And how do you feel about that? And if you are negative on that, do you have any better ideas? Now, of course, these, single residential homes have front yards, backyards, which are safety valves for growing food and, the plants and all that goes with, nature. What do you feel about that, being on city council? Would you go along with the SB 9, 10, or would you try to mitigate that, try to save the, basically the character of single residential neighborhoods?
Well, let me answer your first question first about congestion management pricing for cars.
Can you talk it up, because I have a hearing problem?
Yeah, so you asked about congestion management pricing with cars coming in and out of the city. And I think you asked if that was one of the top issues facing Santa Monica. I don't know if that's a top issue facing our city, and I'm not aware of any plans to implement that, at least in the near future. It's something that's been talked about and has been implemented in some parts of the country. But obviously there are some, I think, equity issues that are implicated by it. And if we're talking about getting people out of cars, simply just connecting people to jobs and building livable, walkable, denser neighborhoods is one way to do it. Investing in public transit is another way to do it. But to the extent that it can solve climate change and reduce carbon emissions by disincentivizing car trips, then I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. With respect to SB 9, SB 10, and other things, it's frankly out of our hands. It's state law. And if politicians sell you on the idea that locally we can stop state law, I've got a bridge to sell you. But SB 9, frankly, has not been used that much because there are a lot of very burdensome criteria you have to comply with in order to do an SB 9 project. For example, you have to certify that the owner is going to live there for 3 years. You can't have rented out the property for a certain number of years before doing it. There are a lot of very, very complicated criteria. I think as of last September, we had maybe 4 or 5 SB 9 projects in the entire city. Relative to other types of development that can densify R1 neighborhoods, it's really not that big of a deal. But we are seeing a lot of our accessory dwelling units, which, to your point about increasing traffic, actually have been shown that they actually don't increase traffic all that much. In large part because they're usually inhabited by adult children or aging parents of people who occupy the house, if they're occupied at all. Oftentimes they're actually used for home offices and other similar things like that. So, that's a long-winded answer, but the bottom line is if we're going to if we're going to find a place for the next generation to live, we have to think creatively. If we want to adopt, say, the Italian model and figure out how to have, say, multi-generational households.
I'm not talking about ADUs. I'm talking about multi apartments along the major traffic corridors and one block in. I'm not talking about ADUs. I'm talking about high density. And
sure. Well,
that's the future in right now. And incrementally, this is a new bill. And as you mentioned, there's not much of it, but it's there for the future to happen. And so if it's out of your hands, I wonder if it is out of your hands. The city, just like Huntington Beach, doesn't go along with it. They protest it. They're going to be sued. But at the same time, that raises questions to the senators. The face that there's objection to it. The city of Santa Monica, you representing the city of Santa Monica, bringing it up to council, could do the same.
Well,
how do you feel about
I happen to be an attorney in my day job, and I can tell you that it would cost our city a lot of money and we would lose, and it wouldn't be a good use of public funds, in my opinion.
I can't hear you, sir.
In my opinion, it would not be a good use of public funds to fight that lawsuit. We would lose. We would lose public money if we were to fight it in court. That's just my opinion.
That's Huntington Beach.
Yeah.
It's still going on. I don't think we would lose, but it's an objection. What I'm saying.
I think we have time for one last question from Andy.
Okay, thank you. Ellis, my question is, then, because of the fires, we've lost a lot of canopy.
Yeah.
You're talking about budget coming up. What we've heard when you were even on the urban forest task force is that basically the conservation ordinance is ready for city staff to begin processing and working on. They just need to be told to use it and budget for it. Is that something you're going to bring up in the meeting?
It is. So we've gone through a few different versions of this before. Each time we find out that there are new state laws that make it a little bit more complicated than we thought it was before. We need a bigger investment in our public landscape department in general, irrespective of how we legislate trees on private property. I mean, as you folks probably saw, with all the branches in the ground from our latest windstorm, we've got to make a tremendous investment in repairing our damaged urban forest. And I should mention as a footnote too, that part of the, we're talking about being in a tough spot financially. We've had to slash the budget for street repairs, pothole repairs, streetlight repairs. Many folks have probably seen that there are hundreds of streetlights around the city that are out right now, in large part because folks are stealing the copper wire, but also because we just don't have the money in our budget anymore to fix it. So, fixing our urban forest canopy and reinvesting that is going to be critical. Making sure that we don't lose more of our urban forest canopy unnecessarily is going to be key. I think the plan tentatively is to have the conceptual framework for the tree ordinance come back in either April or May, and at that point, I think obviously we're going to have to get this conversation going with local stakeholders, including the Urban Forest Task Force, Planning Commission, and others. But we're going to have to figure out, what we can afford, what's doable, and how we can get folks in private property to help support our forest canopy.
Great, currently it's working pretty well with this.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, thank you all so much for having me here, folks. Reach out to me. Ellis.Raskin at Santa Monica.
Thanks for everything you're doing. Thanks for how much time you're giving us.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, folks.
All right, next up, we've got the Santa Monica Police Department. I believe they're joining us virtually today. Let me make sure I get them.
Oh, we've got some police.
Oh, they are here. Just kidding.
Please.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. So I was one of the partners here for you to meet. We have Officer Christian Pavil. He's going to be doing the B3 area. Officer Brandon Avila is actually going to be in charge of part of the Oceanfront Association area. His wife is having a baby, so I might actually meet him a little bit. So you might see a little bit more of this guy. And then my new counterpart, I'm really excited that she's here, is Jacqueline Aguilar. She is the press program. She's amazing. I'm really excited to have her here. She will be taking over the city to see her around at a couple of meetings.
Awesome. Welcome.
Wow. So I'm going to get into a couple of things here, and then we can open it up for questions. I want to make sure that we have plenty of time for Jenna as well. So I'm going to go with kind of the highlights here. So we have the re-robberies. I'm going to go down the list here. So 2400 Ocean Avenue. This occurred around 10 p.m. Victim was walking her dog and she had her purse on her arm. Purse was snatched off her shoulder and the individual ran off with her purse. She wasn't able to get much of the description as it was quite dark. And I believe this one actually occurred last night. Then there was another one, 1800 block of Oceanfront Walk. This was around 3 p.m. Victim was seated on a bench and looking down at her phone. As she's looking down, an individual on a bike drives by and just snatches it and takes off on the bike. She chased after him but was unable to catch up to the bicycle. She was able to get a suspect description, and we have some footage from some of the nearby hotels, so that is still an open investigation. And then the last one, this was on the 2500 block of Main. 3 individuals were leaving a bar. They believe it may have been the Victorian. They said that 6 suspects approached them and assaulted them and took one of their cell phones. That one's still also an open investigation. The next, we have a couple of burglaries that occurred since these are in the last 30 days. So we're looking at 7 total. 4, which were garage break-ins at residential areas, mostly shared garages, targeting bicycles. And then 1 at a construction site. And another one, they did not make entry into a home. However, the individual that lived in the home heard some noise outside. She looked out at people and noticed somebody trying to pry their window open. She didn't see pry marks on the window, but the person that spooked and ran off. And the other one was a commercial burglary, 2300 Main. The register was taken. They made entry through the back. And then we have, so some of the things that we tend to see in the area are vehicle break-ins, so locked vehicles, entry into those places. We have 4 of those in the vicinity, lower than what we've seen in other times. So it's average, but slightly on the lower side. So nothing major on that end either. And then lastly, this didn't happen in the Ocean Park area. However, you may have already heard that there was a homicide this morning. This happened around 7 a.m. They found one of the workers, the beach maintenance workers, found an individual who was in a sleeping bag. It was a female who has been identified. We believe that she is unhoused or was unhoused. There was some trauma to her face, and there's still an investigation going on with that. We do have a number for a detective. If you have any information of that, if anybody happens to have anything that you want to add, you can contact me and I'll put you in touch with the detective. That's the last part of it, and a slightly brighter note. But we've been slowed down a little bit with some of the events that we've been having, so now we're picking right back up. Now we have new people in the office as well. We want to make sure that they have the opportunity to meet some of the people in the community. So we're going to be having an event on the 19th, so it's February 19th. That's going to be at Dr. T House on Pico. I brought some flyers for you guys, so they're over here. Specific address is 1709 Pico, and it's boba with badges. So if you like boba, bubble tea, you'll enjoy this. It should be a lot of fun. We're doing it in the evening or a little later in the afternoon hours. We want to make sure that it's available to different people, and if you're at work, that you're able to come after work. So we're hoping to see you all there. And again, we have flyers here, and if you have any questions on it, you know where to find me. I have a couple of business cards. There's some new faces here, so I'll leave those here as well for you guys.
Can you say when this event is again?
It's on the February 19th. It's a Wednesday.
And it'll be in the open newsletter.
Yes, thank you. It's 4 to 6 p.m. Very good. Yes, 4 to 6 p.m.
Thank you so much for having me on the late afternoon.
Yeah, I know. That's a big part, and we hear you guys, so we want to make sure that everybody gets an opportunity.
I'm
Thank you.
actually gonna probably attend this one.
I love that. Please do. Tell your neighbors, tell your friends. We want to see more people out there.
Thanks. Any questions? Good question.
I do, actually, regarding the Victorian, it's for years now, the Victorian has issues with. They just have a lot of violent issues, robberies, violence, people spilling out into the local community, breaking people's windows, cleaning people's yards. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes on in the Victorian parking lot, street, neighborhood. Has the police department spoke with the owners, the management at the Victorian, because it's an issue.
So actually, their main security person is XSMPD. So we've had a relationship with this person and worked with him. We've actually done operations with their crime impact team and had several successful arrests. It's difficult because obviously it continues. So what happens is we'll have an operation, things cool off for a couple months, and then it picks back up. We have another operation, it picks back up. And it's certainly something that we've been in talks with them. And we were actually discussing this. I know I've talked to you guys in the past about pocket picking. And that's always, it ebbs and flows, but it's picking up again, and it continues to happen, especially like right now with Super Bowl, like bigger events, we tend to see that they start coming right back. And I feel like, it's gotten like a broken record, like, hey guys, make sure that you're not keeping your valuables in open areas and all those things. But at the end of the day, it is very frustrating for us as well, because it's just gonna end the cycle. We have tried a couple of different things. There are some limitations, just with management and how they want to handle things. So a private property, so there's only so much that we have control over what they can do within the property itself. But it is something that's certainly on our radar. And we actually just came from a training where they were talking about different cities and how they do crime prevention through environmental design. And they were talking about a entertainment manager. And so it's somebody who's assigned to entertainment areas. So any areas that have a lot of bars or just activity with nightlife, they have somebody who's specifically assigned, not necessarily police, but just someone who's assigned to the area to know what the handle is and keep an eye on things and communicate with police. So we were just kind of talking about that this morning, actually, and how we can bring that over here and how we can make that work. Because it certainly is something that we don't want to put all our resources into continuous issues. So yeah, so it is definitely on our radar.
Then John. Then.
Quick question, do you have any statistics about bicycle and e-bike incident in the, let's say, in the last 6 months?
So let me just add on to his question, because we want to know the people about not only the incident he talked about, but traffic stops, traffic accidents. And we know that in January, right, the city council basically said every 3 months they need to report back. So, what can you tell us about that, and can we get that data? And I don't mean to jump on your question, but that was my question.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. That's been a big issue as well. And we have a particular group of kids that have been kind of popping up pretty often. Officer Hollowell, so he's a beat 1 officer. Also, I am not going to be doing beat 1. So I know in the past I've said I don't do partial amounts of OPA. I'm doing the whole thing now. So, but I'm still fairly new in it. I'm still learning it. But I know that he's been a big part of this operation with the e-bikes, and he's been working with the motor officers. I don't have that data, but I know I can get it because it's something that they've been working on for some time. And he's back in the office tomorrow, so I can talk to him about that, and I'll send it your way.
Thank you.
Yeah. Going back to the purse snatches and robbery, the phone and stuff. Is it possible that community members could download or upload camera footage of activity that might be happening on their property that would capture a suspicious person that then could be linked to any possible criminal activity that occurred that required a police response and report?
Meaning
To
like in
connect the
the
dots.
specific area near the Victoria?
Yeah, like within a 3-block area circumference or 4-block area circumference, so that time and place, right? Time, place, manner, and so if a detective gets these video footages and he knows that a purse snatch or a phone snatch occurred approximately the same time, approximately the same area, and these footages might assist him in identifying the person that otherwise would not be able to get identified. Can they connect the dots that way? Is there a way that community members can just randomly or upload camera footage of people walking onto their property? I had a person last night that did that on our property, just walked around a car, looked at it, had a hoodie on, and around 1:30 in the morning. Didn't do anything on our property, but we don't know what he did in the area. So if you guys got footage and something did happen that I wasn't even aware of, but the detectives were because they got the crime report, they could connect the dots. Is there that sort of system in place?
Yes, so yes and no. So I think on a very specific level, so when there is an incident, for example, what I was talking about earlier with the cell phone snatching that happened in the Oceanfront Walk. So what they'll do is that they look at the vicinity and they look for cameras, and then they'll contact those people directly. So if they notice that your camera may have captured something that could have been in that area, then you'll get a knock on your door, somebody will contact you and say, hey, can we get that footage from you? And what they do is they send you a link, and we have a system where just by clicking that link, you can upload any footage, photos, anything like that for evidence. So I guess your question is just saying, can anybody just randomly submit it? So I usually has to be linked to a specific report number. So if there isn't an actual report, there isn't somewhere for it to go, it's just kind of in the ether. So, I think that'd be a good question with some, I want to look into some of the purse hatches that we've seen, like of the Victorian, and see if there's any full reports. As a lot of them are just calls for service and not a full report. If there are full reports, then what I could do is just reach out to detectives and ask about anything of that nature. That is something they normally do, though. They do canvass the area and see if there's anything that might be helpful. But given just how active these incidents have been, it might be useful to kind of take it to that next step, even if there isn't a report.
And then going to the next level, I know council member was talking about budgets and strains, and we're looking for service multipliers, technology that can lead to enhancing services without necessarily having to hire more people, because we know that hiring more people is probably one of the most expensive ways dealing with something, with salaries and benefits, all those days off, and that all add up. So if there's technology out there that can go through uploaded video with a time and a date stamp on it and match that with a time and a date location of a known report or crime, and that technology automatically links the two together, not saying that it was, but it's saying that this is a possible. And now a detective can grab those two pairs and possibly connect dots. I'm just saying, is that technology out there? And if not, can it be out there?
We have a grant for Smart Center that's coming up. I don't know the details, the intricacies of it. We have Sergeant Leone is the one that's overseeing the project. We have been really excited for it to come our way, and I believe that that's part of it. I just don't know exactly how that works. That is technology beyond my knowledge at this point. But I know that it's something that our chief has been very excited for, because it is essentially what you're saying. It's giving us the ability to have access and eyes on areas where we don't normally have people there. So, we started that with our drone, and that's been very successful for us. So the Smart Center is kind of taking it to another level. I don't have a launch date for that yet. It's hopefully, not hopefully, it is supposed to start this year.
Is the Smart Center part of the police department, or is it part of the EOC?
It's part of the police department.
Thanks for the question. I think that is it. Thank you very much. Thanks for making time. Do you have anything to add? No pressure.
Chicago, I've been with the department since 2018. Since being here, I've worked for the homeless unit for almost 3.5 years. Back to patrol as a field training officer. Prior to law enforcement, I played football for the Atlanta Falcons and the Philadelphia Eagles. Transparency is key, and working with you guys is key in getting it done. I'll be the first one to tell you guys, I don't know everything, but I'll figure it out. I try to find an answer for you. I'm excited for this collaboration and to work with you guys. Again, I'm B3. Jackie, she'll introduce herself, but at the end of the day, we'll all set them up. So if you guys need anything, feel free to reach out. Again, I'll try to figure it out for you guys.
Do you have cards as well? Because we
Not yet.
We're not used to getting, so our cards are being made.
But if you email me, I'll get you in touch with that.
We just want to know if you predicted that.
We're big Eagles fans in my house. Philadelphia. Thank you.
My
Thank you.
sister lives in Philly, so.
There you go.
Yeah.
Jacqueline Aguilar, call me Jackie. I've been with the city, I've been working for the city for about 20 years. I started my career here, and I'm excited to be a part of this team. Like you said, we'll be a part of B3, but I'm sure I'll be around just like today, so. Meet you.
Great. Thank you for making time today, and thank you for your service. I'm just having minor technical difficulty here.
That's fine, because I had to pay my card here.
Yeah. Okay, now I get to solve for time. All right, everyone. For why the TV went black, but I will try and fix that. Jenna should be back momentarily. I am going to introduce her just while we wait for her to return. She is the Chief Deputy City Attorney, and she's here to talk about Samo Bridge, which is a new diversion pilot program. So Should be interesting. It's something that's going to be happening on the grounds of the Santa Monica Civic Center. Hopefully she will be right back. And so please take a moment. I gotta fix the AV because she has a presentation for us. All right, Jenna back. So Jenna's back, so we can get started. I'm not sure if the AV is going to be back. We're trying to fix it. All right, if everyone could give Jenna a warm welcome from the Deputy City Attorney's Office.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Jenna Grigsby. I'm the Santa Monica City Attorney's Office. I am the chief deputy of the unit. So the city attorney's office is made up of a couple different units, but all that I do is criminal prosecution. So what does that mean to you? Just make sure I can get in. Good. So I pull it up. So criminal prosecution in the city, most of you probably heard that term, but I only do misdemeanors. So when you think of what comes out of our shop, it's anything that's punishable by less than a year in county jail. So your quality of life crimes, assaults, petty thefts, trespasses, also your domestic violence, your DUIs. We do a lot of drugs, drug possession, stuff like that. So that's really what you're going to think of when you think of the city attorney's office. I'm here tonight to talk to you about a very exciting project. Ooh, we even have things happening, even more exciting. Sort of, maybe?
I thought so.
I did too. We saw it. So we're going to talk tonight about a grant program that we have applied for and received. It's an $8 million grant. So it's all grant funded. It is not coming out of the dire city situation. So that is very exciting. Yeah. One screen.
Yeah, 5.
I'm glad these problems happen to somebody else. I am the worst when it comes to technology, so this is very exciting. I can go through it from here.
We got it.
Well, it's not on presentation mode.
Yeah, 5.
It did. Oh, that's when it disappeared.
Oh, well, it's just because it's on a different screen.
Yeah.
If you just want to click through it and pull it up, that's fine. I don't mind. I'm flexible. So tonight we're going to talk about what is Santa Bridge, why we need it, who's eligible, and where it's going to be located, plus the security plan. We're calling it Santa Bridge just because the city loves to have fun titles. We came up with it. We were very excited. So let me give you a little bit of background on me. I have been here 15 years. I started my career as a prosecutor here with the city. I have done everything from quality of life crimes. I've done a camping trial. I've done a strangulation domestic violence trial. I've done a ton of DUIs. We had a lot of those. Brass knuckles, really anything and everything. I have done it. I've been the chief for about 3 years running the division. There are 6 other attorneys plus 3 support staff. So we are small, but we are mighty. We get about 3,500 reports, not only from the SMPD, but also from College PD, UCLA, the Sheriff's Department, CHP. So we're used to dealing with a lot of different agencies. The last couple of years, I've really focused my career and a lot of my time on the homeless crisis here in the city and how we can deal with that and best practices, not only from a city, but a regional development plan. So that's kind of where my heart lies at the moment and why we started to go out for this grant funding. So I come from a very prosecutorial background, but now we're kind of moving into other ways that we can try to address this crisis we're dealing with. So that's what we're going to talk about. Next slide. Thank you, sir. So what is our program? It's a new option for this police department and CAO to direct people with justice involvement into housing and treatment. It is not a shelter. It's not a drop-in center, and it's completely grant funded. So what we're doing is a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week service center. It is going to be a respite hub that's made up of 2 separate trailers. So if you think of like big construction trailers that you would see at this tall buildings they're building, or the different areas where there's a security guy and the planning guy, those kind of trailers. So there will be 2 of them. They'll be operated by Exodus Recovery, which is a regional service provider. They do case management, mental health services, rehab services. They also offer a lot of different bed options in terms of temporary housing, sober living, crisis management beds. They do it all. The trailers will house 3 to 4 people at a time for a max of 72 hours. So one trailer is just going to be your case management team, you know, your workers, and then the other trailer is going to be the participants, and they are going to be in, think of like a Barca-Lounger or a Lazy Boy. It is not a cot, it is not a bed, it's not an individual room. It is literally a Lazy Boy recliner type chair that they will have access to from 24 to 72 hours. We needed to give Exodus that much time to try to find the next step for this person, because you think about it, they come in on a Friday, not everybody works 24/7, right? So we have to give folks an opportunity to call different places to make sure that they have that connection. But contractually, the Exodus team is required to move folks to the new location within 72 hours. What are we going to offer? We're going to be offering a snack, a nap, a restroom, and a shower. And really the most important thing is the case management. So a lot of you are asking, why is this being run out of the city attorney's office? It sounds like human services. What are we doing? But the whole purpose of this program is to try to find justice-involved individuals who are ready to take that next step. And the research has shown, and the different diversion programs have shown, that when they come in contact with a police officer is usually when they're most willing to say yes. Because at that point, the option is jail or Sam O'Brien, right? So we're not completely letting go of the traditional prosecutorial route. We are just trying to find a better way to get folks to say yes and do behavior change. Next slide, please. So the need for Samo Bridge, obviously addressing homelessness is one of the top city council priorities. We've heard that, you know, for a while now. We are still under a homelessness state of emergency. Well, the other thing that I think people forget is we live in a world of where most low-level offenses, so your petty thefts, your drug crimes, even your trespasses, your burglaries, some of those can be considered cite and release. So that's great. The police officer does its job. They have somebody in handcuffs. They take them to the jail. That person is given a ticket, told to come to court in 30 days before the police officer's gone upstairs and write his report. So we're in this cycle of rinse and repeat, and we're constantly looking for better ways to handle that. And we think Samo Bridge is one of those ways. So the result of this rinse and repeat cycle is you get a ton of bench warrants. If I can't get somebody to court, I cannot have the judge order them to do X, Y, and Z. And until they come in contact with the court, they don't get that order. And if they don't have the order, what's going to motivate them to change behavior? So that's why we're looking for this immediate connection between law enforcement and social services. We've shown that it's been effective before, and we're just trying to build on that by having this 24-hour, 7-day-a-week location. And again, there's really no provider right now that operates on that hours. There are some emergency beds at Samo Shell, but it's a process. It's a little more intensive for the police officer, for the caseworker to get somebody in. So we are really offering kind of a low barrier, immediate access point for those 4 Barca-Lounger type beds. Next, please. So the eligibility criteria, again, what I want people to remember is that there's 2 different things to consider, eligibility and suitability. They're 2 very different things. We're going to go into them a little bit now. So eligibility is what makes somebody able to join this program. And there are things that the grant requires us to do. You have to have all 3 of these. You have to have a current history of low-level misdemeanor offenses, experiencing homelessness, and then showing some signs of mental health or substance abuse. Without those, you will not be eligible for our program. You're screened twice for program eligibility and suitability, once by SMPD before obviously you're put in the car because they make the referral to the Exodus Samo Bridge location. And then when you get to Exodus, they will again do a screening. So the suitability that I talk about is we are not going to put folks there that aren't suitable, meaning they need a higher level of care. You know, somebody who's closer to like a 5150, danger to self or others, that's not an appropriate treatment center or location for the officer to pick them and transport them to Samo Bridge, right? Or somebody who is accused of a very violent crime. That's not the kind of location or that kind of person that is suitable for Samo Bridge. So the offenses that we're talking about, again, low-level misdemeanors. So your public intoxication, your camping, possession of drugs, loitering to commit a crime, burglary, shoplifting, and vandalism. Those are going to be your bread and butter. Those are the things that we have really worked at and seen having had success when it comes to diversion type programming. You know, again, every case is different, but these are the ones that we really run into where people are ready to accept some kind of help to change that behavior. The things that are going to disqualify you for eligibility, any serious or violent crime. So if there's any real injury there, or anything that is going to be rising to the level of felony, those are folks that aren't going to be suitable for our program. Arrests related to crimes involving children, and then obviously anything requiring sex registration. Again, those folks just need a higher level of care that we're not going to be prepared to offer them at a 24/7 facility at Samo Bridge. So this is the location. This should look familiar to everybody. This is the picture on the left is the Civic Center, kind of the aerial view. We are going to be in the parking lot with the star. So it is a city parking lot, but it's currently not used. It's not very large. It's open, and we're going to put the trailers there. We'll have to do a little bit of infrastructure in terms of getting the lighting and, you know, making sure that they have access to water and plumbing. But having done the research, and we've looked at 14 different sites, we narrowed that 14 down to 3 that we deemed suitable. We did a ton of site visits. Again, we talked to Public Works. We made sure that they would actually work in these locations. And the Civic Center was the best option after we went through that long process. So a lot of people also ask, next, please. Thank you. What is security going to look like? The grant, we built it into the grant to have some security options in the contract. So it will be a 24, 7-day-a-week site security officer. This will be one person whose responsibility is not only to protect the staff on site, but to make sure participants aren't lingering around. Again, this is not the access center. We are not going to have a line of tents. We're not going to have people hanging out for a meal or shower service, or this is not what that is. You can only be on the trailer site if you are a participant in the program, and after you've been transported to your next stop, if you're having an appointment to meet with your case manager. So I want to make sure that's very clear. Like, the security officer is there to make sure the area stays clean, stays safe, and it's not going to have a bunch of people loitering around. There will be a weapon search by SMPD. Obviously, police officers not going to put somebody in the car that they haven't patted down completely for both weapons and contraband. And then once they get to Exodus, there'll be another search for weapons, contrabands, that kind of stuff. We also have money in the grant for these live video monitor feed. We were talking about technology earlier and how that can really help. These things are amazing. They have floodlights, two-way speakers, strobe lights. It's like a DJ system. I had no idea it could do all these things. It is amazing. But there will be they have 6 different cameras posted on that pole so that officers will have the ability to look at all times to see what's going on. Obviously, it's unrealistic to have someone 24 hours a day, 7 days a week staring at a video screen, but it is going to be monitored in a way that will provide some sense of security to that area. And then all the Exodus staff will be trained in crisis management and de-escalation. The company that Exodus has worked with at almost all of their other sites, that again includes crisis stabilization beds, rehabs, sober living facilities. They've worked with this company in the past, and they're particularly trained to deal with this type of population. So we're very comfortable in who's coming on site and helping to protect and secure those trailers. So the timeline, we are, I can't believe it, already in February. Part of the grant is also to have a third-party evaluator. So Moss Adams, who's contracted with the city on other different grant projects, is going to be our evaluator. And the thing that I'm really excited about is they're not only evaluating the financial side, but they're also evaluating the data and the outcome. So they keep us responsible in the sense that, like, is this making a difference? Are we doing anything with recidivism? Those are the folks who are going to be looking at that data and crunching those numbers. And then we hope to have the trailers installed by March, and then the doors have to be open by April 1st. As part of the grant funding requirement, you only get a 6-month window to get your program started, and we got our grant in October. So April 1, we will have this project up for 36 months. That's a 3-year contract cycle. Again, if it works, great, then it's my job to find more money. If it doesn't, then we will move on to something else. But we are really excited, based on the diversion programs we've run in the past here at the city attorney's office, that this is kind of the next step and iteration of the things that we can provide for these folks. I do see you back there. I'm not ignoring you, I promise. I'm almost done. Some things we can do to stay informed. Another part of the grant is to have this local advisory committee. We're responsible to reporting out to them every quarter. If anybody's interested in joining, we do have some department heads. We have other commission members. We have some neighborhood groups. So anybody who's interested in being and staying informed, again, the local advisory committee is a great opportunity to do that. We're also going to report out to the Human Services Commission on, again, a quarterly basis as required by the grant. And eventually we will have a webpage up and running that we hope to function as like a dashboard so people can get more information and keep tabs of what's going on. So that's my spiel, and I have time for all the questions. I see you in the back.
So, thank you. I think this is a great program.
Thanks.
Good for the neighborhood. So thank you for going out, finding a grant, having it last 36 months. I would be curious about the contingency plans that the city has, not just your office, if it turns out to be really successful. I mean, we could see people trying to come in and say, you have case managers, I want help because I'm not getting it. So could you talk a little bit about what happens when, if that happens, what the city would do in that case, right? Because I think a lot of people in here are more concerned about loitering.
Yeah, so the key with this program is that you have to be referred by a police officer. So it's not just anyone and anyone who's decided that they want help. We have different city resources that we can direct folks to that don't qualify because we're specifically focused on this justice involved participant. We're also going to work with Exodus on training the staff that's there as well as the security officer to make sure that they have those resources available, whether it's pamphlets, whether it's cards, whatever it is, with maps, with directions, to help kind of direct folks where they can go and where it's the most appropriate for them. If this is hugely successful in 3 years, we can talk about, you know, a bigger location, more space. I'm, you know, of the philosophy, like if we build it and it's successful, then I will figure out how to fund it. So that's, I think, what we're going to look at too.
Well, certainly it sounds like a great idea. And I was at the council meeting when it was proposed, and I remember saying there were 2 other locations, but I don't think anyone's ever heard what they were. And I think it's great. I know there's some people that would just say, I don't want the homeless program here and near the kids at the fields or anywhere in this city and take them out of the state. But I'm not worried about that. I think it's really commendable that you're doing this. I'm concerned, not really that much concerned, because I know there's an opportunity to save the Civic Auditorium for all the great events it could do, benefit concerts to help the homeless and everything else that goes with it. And I'm sure you're aware of that. And I'm just wondering that when that comes through and we bring back that beautiful auditorium, are you going to be prepared to work with the people there or move or do something there that'll, because I don't think that it's going to hinder them from what I'm hearing. I think they said they could still save the auditorium even though you're going to be there. But that networking is really important because people want to save that Civic Auditorium and they also want to do what you're doing.
So that's the greatest thing about trailers. You can just hitch them up to something and move them somewhere else. So that's part of the reason why we went with this kind of mobile footprint, because we knew that the Civic Center had a lot of excitement around it and we did not want to get in the way of that. And so before we even picked the location, we did go out to the, again, this is not in my wheelhouse, that is luckily another department in my city attorney's office. We went out to the folks who are working with that conglomerate company to let them know these were a possibility and that, you know, again, we are happy to move it if it's being, you know, revived, if they sell it, if whatever is happening to the Civic Center, the trailers aren't going to be a hindrance to that. So again, which is one of the reasons why I like these portable trailers. Yes, ma'am.
Who vetted Exodus to give, to partner with you? Because I have done a little bit of investigation on Exodus, and like people concerned, they have a lot of violations, civil rights violations and violations. So they're very good at getting public contracts. They're very well connected. So they get a lot of money and public funds. But the reality of it is that they are not the best. So who vetted and who chose and what was the process of getting Exodus involved?
Sure. So we've been working with Exodus probably the last 5 years in 3 different capacities. They currently work with the criminal courts in a program called RDP, which has been hugely successful, and we are big proponents of it. It functions very similar to this, providing case management to low income, indigent populations through the courts. Again, we've had great success with that. For the last year, we've partnered with Exodus to do our step court It is a monthly court where the judge and the bailiff come to SMI, and we have between 25, 30, sometimes even 40 participants who's on our court calendar to do case management. And in the last year, we've graduated 13, I think the number is 13, if not 14 individuals into some form of permanent housing, or we've relocated them back to friends and family in other states. And those folks who have graduated from step court haven't been rearrested, which to me is a huge win in Santa Monica. So given the experience that we've had with Exodus and our ability to work with them and kind of craft the contract in a way that I think holds them a little bit more accountable than some folks that we've dealt with in the past. Again, I've lived in this diversion space for probably the last 5, if not 7 years. And I have worked with some really good service providers and some suspect ones who are great at what they do, but not necessarily in providing that accountability and that responsibility. So when we drafted the contract that we have through our actual state funder, we made sure to put in those guardrails, because I think it's important to not only hold the, the service provider accountable for results, but also for that like budgetary aspect of it. So we do all of that in-house. We have in the contract a 3-year limited term person that we will hire, whose job is really to keep the guardrails on. So that's kind of the process we went through. Yes, sir.
The location, looks like it's at 4th Street, is it?
So it's the corner of Main and Pico at the Civic Center parking lot, or I wouldn't even call it the Civic Center parking lot. There's a lot at that corner, that southwest corner.
Yeah, Civic Victoria.
Yeah.
This sounds like it's just like about a 3-day program. How long will they be housed?
So the ultimate goal and the carrot and the stick approach that we use is once the SMPD officer makes contact, they agree to accept the program. Again, it's a voluntary service. We still live in a world with constitutional rights. We cannot, hold people there captive. So if they agree to the program, our responsibility is Exodus will do a care plan for 90 days. If you stay with that care plan for 90 days, do what Exodus is asking you to do, then we won't file your criminal citation, or we will be able to help with your warrants or your probation cases.
Getting on their feet, hopefully working. Have you thought about a segue program, vocational training, perhaps at Santa Monica College?
So Exodus works with a lot of different of the service provider agencies. The city has a contract with Chrysalis who provides job training. So we're looking at all of those avenues. But again, this is the way I approach diversion, right? These folks are in very different situations than I am. I think it's better that someone who's had lived experience, who's been in that world, to help them get where they need to go. So I need to solve whatever the problem is that got them in front of the criminal justice system, and whether it's job training or placement or rehab or whatever, Exodus will come up with those care plans to make sure that.
I'm sorry, but we're
Vocational training.
That's what I'm saying. If that's where they're staged, some of these folks are not there yet. Right? Some of these folks just need to go to the DMV and get a driver's license.
last question,
Yes, sir.
Mark.
I know some, a lot of towns do around, it may be great for the service, but what could citizens do to get them there? I mean, do we sort of call the police and say, should arrest that guy and then get him to Jamaican Grove and tell him how can we help?
So that is a really good question. And the way that this grant is written, it's targeted for this population. But if they have some criminal justice involvement in the past, or if there is something that the officer is going to be involved with them currently, that is a way to get them in. But I think what we don't want, and again, I'm very cognizant of where this location is. We don't want folks saying, hey, Joe, who you are very friendly with and lives on the street and is a nice guy and is not doing the things that some of the other folks who are unhoused are doing, go over here. These people might be able to help you. I mean, that's what the people concern is for. That's what St. Joe's is for. That's not what we're doing, right? Because we want to make sure that we are keeping this location to what it's supposed to be, which is a temporary location for you to come down from your drugs, to come down from whatever mental health situation is happening, get you to a place of yes, so that we can then transport you to a sobering center, a rehab bed, whatever it is that's next stop on your journey. Anything else? No?
Thank you for making time.
Just quickly, how long is the grant?
3 years. Awesome.
Thank you for making time
You're
tonight.
welcome. Anytime. Oh, thank you.
Great. I know some people had to leave when guests were finished. So we're just gonna kickstart the board business part of the meeting. If you have to step out, please just do so quietly. And so we will just jump into the committee reports, and then we're gonna talk about 2025 and what committees we want to be focusing on and who wants to be focusing on what and why, and start sort of mapping out what we're hoping to accomplish this year. I do want to say really quickly, I believe, before we get started on that, Abe, you have some materials for people.
Yeah, if you want to pick up some of the emergency preparedness materials, they're on the desk right here, and you can get it on the way out. And if we run out, I can get some more.
Cool. Emergency preparedness is not on any of our minds right now, so. I don't have any meaningful reports from executive committee since last month. Really just focused on calendar and lining up speakers over the course of the year. And that's one of the things that we're looking for some input on is who we should be lining up for meetings, like who's good to hear from, so that we can try and reach out. John.
I have a number of people that I'd like to speak to the organization, voices that we don't typically hear. If you'd like me to start lining them up, I'm glad to do it.
Cool. Any examples of people you think would be great?
You could have former council member Green Davis. He knows a lot about the city. Just an idea. We could bring in people from abundant housing. We could bring in people from Santa Monica Forward. We could bring in just people like this, right? People who are interested in, the pier. We could bring in members of the pier board because it's going to undergo a big transition when the bridge goes down.
Don't we have a member of the peer board in the room? Good point. Let's follow. Good names. I will try to write them down. Please shoot me a line with some of that as well in case I forget. Thank you. Jerry.
I thought it would be good to get the interim city manager, Elaine Polachek, to come and speak.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of you know her, and I'm glad she's taken over while they're doing a national search now. Should be a good speaker.
Yeah, good idea. Thank you. Anybody else, any other names off of top of people's heads? I believe next month we've got council member Snell coming to share his sort of visions and priorities, and someone from Big Outdoors, which is the big digital billboards that we've started seeing popping up there, is going to be here as well, and I believe someone from the library as well.
I like the idea of having a council member here every month. I think they're all willing to come, like, if it's a rotation, they wouldn't have to be here, but every 7 months, right? Whatever.
Yep, I've reached out to everyone. I'm trying to line up all 7 this year. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yes.
Dealing with the cityscape in terms of, I think you call it forestry, trees. Isn't there a tree person who spoke once at a meeting a couple of years ago?
I don't know, Jerry. Is there a tree person? Jerry's on the urban, the urban that task force. Yeah. We just had someone a few months ago, and no, all good. And we'll probably do so again this year.
That's a really interesting thing down the road, because after what we saw in the Palisades, right? So I lived north of Montana for decades, as most people know. That's like a torch, right? So what exists there today might not be what we want to see there in 6 months, right? Those towering palm trees, right? Wood fences hiding the bougainvillea between neighborhoods. So that would be a good, I like that.
Well, also, I mean, the Theodore Payne Center, it's all about sustainable, desert safe, drought tolerant, perhaps fire resistant, somebody from an organization like that.
Thank you.
I'm not sure if this is, sorry.
Okay.
I just have an answer for her.
Okay, please.
The Santa Monica History Museum has an exhibit that's going to last for a year about trees and trees in Santa Monica and the history of trees, obviously, Santa Monica History Museum. But there's a lot of information there, and Jerry and I have both been there. I'm not sure who else, but I was co-chair of the Urban Forest Task Force when it started.
The exhibit Judy's talking about launches February 19th. Anybody would like to go to the History Museum? Where is it? The History Museum is at the backside of the Santa Monica Library. Oh, it's awesome. If you've never been to the History Museum, I highly recommend.
Yeah, basically 7th and Santa Monica.
Yeah. Santa Monica is 7th.
7th, yeah.
7th and Santa Monica.
In the back of the library, on the side of the library.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it would be good if there is a head of the permitting office, permitting department in Santa Monica, have them come down just to ask some questions. Why things take so long and what we can do to streamline them.
It's a good idea, and something city manager can probably address as well. Yeah. Cool, thanks for feedback.
What about the, I forgot his name, forgive me, the one that's taking over for David Martin?
No, her name is, yeah, I've reached out, I've bookmarked to reach out to her once she gets settled in.
Oh.
Give her a minute to get her head above water, but it's a good idea.
Sorry.
No, it's great. Cool. And please, we want the topics to be interesting to everyone. If you come up with other names or departments or things, please shoot me or any of us a line. That's how we figure out who to line up and when. John had his hand up.
I think the most important subject for this organization for the next couple of years will be housing. So I support the idea of what that looks like. People are going to talk about what's coming down the pike, right? Because we as a neighborhood have to be prepared.
Yep.
Right. I mean, it's coming hard and it's going to come fast.
Yep. Great. Thanks all. Good input. Communications, don't have anything specific regarding the newsletter. All systems continue to go smoothly there. Judy, anything to talk about from OPA Connects?
I would suggest everybody come to OPA Connects every Wednesday at noon. And the link is always in the newsletter, the Monday newsletter, so you can tell where it is. It's a small group of people who talk about very current stuff. And it's really very, very interesting. Ian's usually there. Jerry's always there. I facilitate it, so I'm always there. And we usually get a report from the city council and we're trying to work out a rotation of city council members to come to it and kind of give us, what happened last night after 2:00 when you were asleep. And then we talk about it, and Kevin McKeown comes and he knows the background of most issues because he was more recently on the council than I, which was so long ago. But still, it's really an interesting thing. It's every Wednesday at noon. It's only for 45 minutes. Usually people are succinct and interesting. So I urge you all to be a part of it.
Thank you. And then other thing on communications is I know Chris and Robbie are going to be reviewing our online assets and what we're using. I don't think you guys have anything to talk about there yet. I believe we've got till the end of summer to renew or move off of Wild Apricot and hopefully save some money. I know Chris is online. He'll speak up if you had anything to add to that. Member engagement and events. We don't have anything on the books yet for a spring mixer. One of the things that we're struggling with is the neighborhood grants the annual neighborhood grants have not been awarded yet. Don't have any information on whether they're going to be awarded. And that is the primary source of funding for the organization. It's usually a little bit south of $10,000 and pays for all of our online assets, our insurance, various events that we do. Waiting to hear back from a couple people in the city on if and when that will be forthcoming. I don't think anyone else has any news on that, but if that doesn't come, or if they get cut back,
it means we have to cut back on some things, including maybe, food at meetings or having mixers in the park or something instead of, sponsoring things. John?
But we also have opportunities to raise money.
Mhm.
Right? Especially as, we become a more progressive organization, more interested in, a climate-friendly future. The other thing we have an opportunity to do is make money on Main Street. Because for those of you that are unaware, Main Street is going to get designated as a entertainment zone, which means you can do open carry basically from Pico to Marine. Now, the limitation on this, I know the city's still working this out, it's got to go to the police, it should be ready to go in a month or two, means that when the city's closed, you'll be able to, if you're a no-name bar, take your stuff out into the street, sell it, which provides an opportunity for us to make money, right? Because Hunter knows how to do this by extending the fence. So Jeff here, instead of going home at 12 o'clock on the 4th of July, we can keep the street closed and put a beer garden in the middle of Main Street, right? And raise revenue that way. Something the community wants. We all know this, that it worked on Main Street, right? So we're gonna have those opportunities when other people pay to close the street. So it's something that would be a great idea. I know, B, I can tell you're all excited. It's a great thing.
And just to clarify, I believe the entertainment zone rules are only going to apply to events, not day-to-day
It's not,
business.
we just can't close any weekend and have a party, so it has to be tied to parade or, some other event like the dog.
Day of the dog, things like that. It's not going to be a Bourbon Street.
I'd also like to request you not call it open carry, because I definitely thought you meant guns. Like,
Oh, there better not be any of that.
it's like, huh, very exciting.
I'll tell Monty to go take some of this money.
I need us think.
That said, we are hoping to do a mixer in March. We just have to see if it's, what level of financial participation we have in that or not. It'll probably be in late March. So when the weather gets better, if anyone remembers, last year in March, we had to reschedule due to weather. So who knows? So stay tuned for that. Tess, anything to talk about on event stuff? Like things you're working on? No? Cool.
Had a lawn games picnic on Saturday, which probably like 30 people showed up to. It's very fun. Bocce, badminton, croquet, all of which just I own or my friends own. So very low lift. And I'm gonna host a potluck on the 25th of February at the Jocelyn Community Center.
Where was the park, was it at Jocelyn Park?
It was at like the Ocean View Park. It's like where the
No,
little
so-
Ocean View.
So,
mailing list or it's. Yeah, I've done it. But.
So one of the things we talked about is activating the parks, right? Because it's better when people are there. And that's one of the parks that really is top of mind for me and some other people. Bring it up. The more the better.
I'm sorry, where is that the park that's like near across Del Mar, like on the bluffs?
Right in front of the two tall.
On the shores.
Yeah.
On the shores, in the ocean shore.
Right through Ashland.
There's an ocean.
Yeah.
Got it, okay, sorry,
Where that hill is.
I understand.
The knoll.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the one on Bay Street.
No, Ashland.
Oh, that's Crescent. That's the one that needs the help. That's the one that's on, it's on 2 levels. That's a great park for that. It's got a big grassy area.
It wasn't, I thought it would be wet on the radio, but it's actually dry. So it's fair.
To the extent you want those in the newsletter, let me know. So, cool. Moving on to various task forces or other committees. Main Street. So we're sort of into the area of like, what do we want to be focusing on this year? What do people really feel strongly about? Got multiple people that said they wanted to be on the Main Street committee, which is something that we always have, because as we know, Main Street is super important to the neighborhood. I'll follow up with people that reached out, but also wanted to see if there's any hands for, if you didn't reach out to me that you wanted to be involved on Main Street committee, please let me know either now or follow up after. Jeff, cool, Tess, Tony.
Hopefully I remember that. You did email, right? Yeah, I remember that. You did send me a note, so I just have to remember, and I think, and Lucy as well. Great. Shoot me a line afterwards, just in case I forget, because sometimes my brain gets foggy after these meetings. Cool. Education. So last year we had a task force that Christina was chairing around education, just trying to better pull together. Sadly, we don't really have anyone that's super active right now that's also super active in the schools because she's had to step away due to other commitments. So I'm sort of openly soliciting if you know of someone that would be interested in doing some work to better connect OPA with all things going on around education. It's something that we need to have. So please follow up with me if you know someone that's either active in the PTA or something like that, that has a little bit of time to spare to help better connect us to everything that's going on. Because especially with the school supposedly opening next fall, or reopening, sorry, it's super important. Yes. Don't know if it's going to be Smash or Mirror or what it's going to be, but it's scheduled to open in the fall. So, emergency preparedness. Abe.
Yes, I met with someone at the Red Cross during the last week, and she will be sending me PDFs of different pamphlets and material that I'll send to Sean so he could put it in the newsletter. That will be more than the few remnants of 2019 that I've left on the table here. It might be a little bit before we can get somebody from Office of Emergency Management out because they're kind of in the thick of things right now, to do presentations.
Yes.
Just a question. I haven't seen the materials that you brought. Is there information there about, is it called CERT training, to training for citizens to?
CERT training is through the Office of Emergency Management, and that's not part of emergency preparedness. Is a whole different program that you have to, it's a 3-day, I think it's 3 Saturdays in a row that you have to.
3 Saturdays and what?
3 Saturdays, 8 to 5.
Is that something that we support, that we suggest people do?
Yeah, we highlighted it in the newsletter when they've been taking applications, right?
Yeah, and it only happens, I think, twice a year. They should have one soon.
Yeah.
And if you want to, just, contact me by email and I'll get you the information. It's through the Office of Emergency Management. They're kind of swamped right now. Please, contact me and I'll get you the start dates for the next time.
And it'll be in the newsletter. And if there's anyone else that's, interested in trying to help keep the community sort of prepared for emergencies or up to speed on all things emergencies, I'm sure you could use some help there. It's obviously super present in all of our minds right now. So, thank you. Housing matters. As John mentioned before, housing committee is going to be pretty important for the community because we don't know what's going to, what sort of size and scale of buildings are going to be coming up on Main Street or where the Bullmar was, or et cetera. There's a lot of things going around housing. Plus, as I'm sure we all know, there's a big housing crunch now since there's a bunch of displaced people from neighboring communities. So I don't think anyone specifically reached out about sort of being on that task force or chairing it or doing anything, but please follow up with me because I think in the past we've done thank you, we've done a great job of sort of like trying to keep the community up to speed on what's going on with Gelson's, what's going on with Bullmore, et cetera, and bringing in rent control commissioners, et cetera. So we need people to step in and do that.
Yeah, we're due for a meeting, eh? We're overdue.
Okay. All right, so Robbie, John, and Judy so far, and please reach out to me or any of them if you want to get involved with that. Lincoln Boulevard, I believe Dave Tan is going to continue to man that. He's out of town today, so can't speak to that, but he's super passionate about all things Lincoln Boulevard. And Judy.
So, and on Lincoln Boulevard, there's a whole plan about what should be happening that was worked out years ago. And right now, the city is trying to implement what they can, financially, what they can. And the very first thing that they needed to do was to put new electrical lines on Lincoln. And oddly enough, that was like the first thing that had to happen. And then many of the other things that were planned can happen. But those wires are really important. And that's what's going on Main Street right now. If you go on Main Street, if you see
On Main Street,
lanes that are,
You said Main Street. Did you mean Lincoln?
Lincoln, I'm sorry, Lincoln. If you go on Lincoln, then, that's what they're doing, is they're working on the electrical system, the whole thing, and you'll see that there are new poles and new wires going up those poles. It's a little complicated and confusing to me, but something is happening that is going to be the first step in many of the things that were planned years ago about upgrading Lincoln.
John,
So,
then Tony. John, then Tony.
so, yeah, we got a $5 million grant from the state. to Be able to do that, right, which was the first phase. Unfortunately for us, the next phase, well, there was a grant submitted for, I believe, $71 million to the federal government. Well, under the current administration, we're probably not going to see any of that, right? At least based on, Trump's, I'm going to stop all grants, right? What we can do is focus on those very low dollar changes, those, pedestrian activated crosswalks, restriping, simple things like that. So when Dave gets back, we're going to talk a little bit about that sort of stuff and see if we can do something, because this community and the one across from us in Sunset Park, they just don't want to get hit by a car across Lincoln. They don't care how many traffic lights they have to stop.
Right. And I think the timing is, we're really lucky that the timing is that they started work right now. And so the powers that be in Washington haven't figured out how to stop everything yet.
Tony.
Okay.
Cool. What have we not talked about? What other sort of issues or, task forces should we be thinking about this year? Lucy, what's top of mind?
You're saying that the arts task force is not to be part of that, it's other people part of it. I don't know what ideas yet, but I find that interesting. And I'm willing to monitor, as I have been, going to Farmers Market on Sunday. But again, as I said, I'm Claire has done a great job. Everything's running really well. It's great stuff.
Good, thank you. Anything else? Great. I'll be following up with people about trying to push people into having meetings in between board meetings on all of that, and hope that you can come to each meeting and give a brief update on what you're working on. And I'll help facilitate getting people connected to the right people at the city. If there's anything you're trying to accomplish, my primary goal is to help enable you and empower you and get you connected to the right people. So please don't hesitate.
Yeah, just a quick question, not really on topic, but in terms of, I think Dave handles the beach cleanup, so. What, is it too soon to even think about doing one? Are things too toxic? Is it something that could organize now, or we have to wait, or?
It's a good question. I have no idea. Dave's obviously not here this month. I can make a note to follow up, but the beaches are obviously a mess.
Dave's in Egypt right now.
But it's a really good question of what can we be doing to.
Right. I mean, it's actually, right, never used to go in the ocean. I didn't see any signs, but I think that's the.
Supposedly there's updates on our city website regarding the beach and the ocean. So you could go onto our city website
and you should be able to see those updates on there regarding the beach.
Yeah, I haven't heard of any enforcement, but I believe you're right about it, the closures.
People are surfing every day.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, it's been a little flat. Yeah, they like being at the end of people.
Some people want to have a third eye. Cool. I think that's it on sort of like committees and task forces. Brings us to sort of open discussion. I know B wanted to talk about the civic, so I'll throw the floor to you first on that, and then we'll see what any other open business from people.
I'll come forward.
Sure.
Because I think it's hard for people to hear me if I speak that way. I am a member of the Save the Civic Task Force. I think I had the pleasure of meeting with you maybe about a year ago. And at that time, we didn't know, actually, we did know a team that we thought could come forward that had the talent, experience, and resources, meaning money, to be able to do this. But we weren't in a position at that point to be able to share that information. Well, since then, I think most of you probably have heard and know that the group is called Revitalization Partners Group, or RPG.
Is another one.
Yeah, they are made up of most of the people who put on the Fire Live Aid concerts a few weeks ago. So if you saw those concerts, that's a testament to what these folks can do. It's Live Nation, it's Oakview, it's Irving Azoff, it's Russell Geiser, who's a local contractor, but does big stuff, and a fellow named Tim Sexton, whose group is Make Good Stuff, and it's a social justice group. So they're a terrific team. They are not asking the city for any money to work on the civic. And recently there's been some confusion about how responsive or quick they are in getting a deal done with the city. And we're not clear exactly why that's happening, because we work with them and we do know that they are in regular contact with the city staff that's responsible for the civic project. So we are hopeful that by the end of this month, there will be a preliminary contract signed between the city and this group to begin the process of restoring and revitalizing and reopening the civic. One of the reasons that I asked a question earlier of Ellis was about economic engines is because we see that as Save the Civic, and so does our PGC, the civic as a huge economic driver for bringing tourists and visitors, not just tourists from afar, but visitors who are local, to come to Santa Monica for concerts at the Civic. And when they come, they're going to stay in hotels, they're going to eat in restaurants, they're probably going to shop in stores. So there will be an ripple effect. So it'll be a really positive asset for our city. So I wanted to share that with you, because when I was here last time, and Lori Nashon, who was here earlier, was here too, as I said, we had some information, but we couldn't really share. Now we can really share. So, yeah.
So the city has a non-disclosure agreement with RPG. I thought I just heard you say you've been talking to the people at RPG. Is that true? And if it is, can you tell us what they have said? I want to make sure that everyone's following the law.
Sure.
I know you're a lawyer, so you get it.
Please don't let that get out, okay?
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. No, it's not a non-disclosure agreement. It's what's called an exclusive negotiating agreement. And that's, or an ENA. And Judy, you could help us with this too. That's like a preliminary contract that says, okay, we're gonna work on this thing. And what it means for RPG is they are going to be able to gather enough information to then present to the city a specific plan, a timeline, a budget, what they want to do, how they want to do it. That will lead to a more permanent agreement. So at this point, RPG has been in constant communication with city staff, as I said. It has gone into the building with architects.
Isn't it on the agenda for tomorrow night too?
Next week. I mean, the end of the month, yeah. So they've gone into the building with architects and structural engineers and preservation experts and electricians and HVAC people to see broadly what's possible. And on the basis of that, they will then make a specific plan with the city.
What? So that's interesting, right? So they've had 6 months or 7 months. They've been under agreement, ENA. They haven't done anything. There's no, council is concerned. I think the council was like in closed session, right? You only know what you read in the paper. They're like, what's going on? Right? We have a new council. So I think, you know, there's a question of, do we extend it? And a lot of us in the community don't think it's a good idea. The other thing that I would ask you, there has been
Extending it or
extending it.
Same.
Right. That, you have to understand that piece of land is worth $80 to $100 million to the city, and the city's broke. But I want to ask you, what if they come back and say, the best thing to do is to tear it down and to build a sphere? Are you going to say yes?
First of all, they can't do that.
They can do anything.
No, they can't.
Why not? Because
For
some
two
landmark
reasons,
law,
two reasons. It's a city landmark.
which can be unlandmark.
No,
You know
it
that.
can't. It can't.
Yes, it can be.
No, but secondly, it's RPG worked with the Santa Monica Conservancy to put it on the National Register of Historic Places. You can't get more protection for a landmark than that. So to be able to tear it down would be, I can't say impossible. What in the world is impossible? But it's extremely unlikely and very difficult.
See, I do not share that view. I know that these are just man-made constraints. I know that the historical city register doesn't do anything for real protection, and that the city council can unlandmark it. Now, there are things they have to go through, right? It is a process. It'll take 12 months is my guess to be able to do it. So my question is, it's a real possibility. You talked about the Conservancy. When you were here a long time ago, you didn't really talk about the building. You talked about memories in the building.
Yes.
So what are you going to do if they come back and say economically, the only option for us is to knock it down and build something new? You get your entertainment center, it's just not the Civic, right? It could be the Sphere. I like the idea of the Sphere.
Yeah.
Right? But I mean, what are you going to say then? Are you going to say, yes, tear it down and build this thing? Or are you going to say, no, we're going to try to find someone else? It's that simple. Yeah.
We are going to say no.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
And I just want to correct one thing that you said. You said nothing's been happening for the last 7 months. And unfortunately, that seems to be a misconception
You said they were doing things. I agree.
going around the community right now. So they've been in the building. They've been exchanging ideas with the city about this preliminary agreement. They've met with the Coastal Commission, which is a big one, because the Coastal Commission could shut this thing down right away. So they've met with the Coastal Commission, and the Coastal Commission is pretty excited about this project. They think it's a terrific idea. And they have been working on all the kinds of things you have to do as preliminary steps before you can go in and start to do anything. So they have been working.
I agree, right, but they haven't come forth with anything that's actionable to the city. And that, I think, is what the city is struggling with.
Well,
Because they have a financial problem, and they know this piece of land can solve those problems, right? You don't forget what the economic underpinnings are of the council's action. The council's not here for memories. They're here, they have a fiscal responsibility to make sure the city doesn't go bankrupt and they continue to
Right.
provide police service.
Well, so,
That's the alternative.
yeah, so the city, I think, could use a good investment manager. Because, because there's two ways that you can look at this piece of land and the building that's on it. One way you can look at it is, let's sell it now and get some kind of a chunk of money, and then we don't have it anymore. It's like selling off, it's like selling off the family silver and the family jewels. Once you sell it, you don't have it anymore. But wait. Another way to look at this is it's a long-term investment. It's not going to cost the city any money at all, except the foregoing of selling it right now. But the city doesn't have to budget a penny for this thing. RPG will pay for everything. And the return is the tourists, the visitors, the boosting of hotel revenues, city taxes, fees, all the good things that Ellis was talking about that come to the city and its money when we have people visiting. You won't get that if you sell it off. You'll sell it off and you're done.
So,
Hold on, Tony had his hand up a while ago.
I'm just, sorry, B, if there's, you may have said it, and I apologize, is there a timeline of when Civic Center would, auditorium would reopen?
I think that they hope that it'll be sometime in the spring or summer of 28. I don't think RPG thinks that it'll be soon enough to make it an Olympic venue.
Right.
Because it would be an arts venue. And I worked for the Olympics in 1984, so I have a little bit of feeling of how much lead time the Olympics uses to get stuff done. They're already contracting for venues and artists and orchestras and dance companies and jazz groups and theater groups. So it's not going to happen probably, but it probably could be.
well, that's real wrong. I heard 2032, but I don't know.
You heard what?
2032, but I don't know how to tell you that.
Oh my, where'd you hear that?
People talking.
Oh.
So, just like, but people know who I am, B, so you.
Want to dance?
The other thing is, I'm a little confused by I have to sell it piece. That's not necessarily a financial option that has to be considered. You could knock that thing down, you could build housing and have a revenue of millions of dollars a year from whoever operates that housing development. You could put 700 families there on that space and, help take care of the city's issues. So those are other options that the populace is starting to become aware of and that they love.
Thank you both for
Thank
updating
you.
us on your thoughts for that
Thank
property. Any other sort of just open business from anyone? All right. Couple technical items. We have to approve last month's minutes that Christina messaged out. I think Jeff got his hand up first. Robbie, are you seconding? All right. Board members only, all in favor, any opposed? All right. Minutes are passed. And unless there's any other board business at all, is there what?
All right, yeah. Ian, motion to adjourn, and Jeff snuck it in again. Jeff seconds, board members only. Any, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, meeting adjourned at 8:14 PM. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Sean.
Before I finish it.